live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, it is Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. Badly in need of a haircut and a shave like it's 2020. I'm Steve Pulaski. Good to be with you on this Wednesday evening, joined by my compadres who I have photo proof are my actual friends in real life coming up later on. Joe Viso on the theater screen, Dominic Guanzon in the blue. Gentlemen, how are we feeling on this Wednesday?
Dom, you can go first.
Just pretty hyped for next year's the newest federal holiday, Juneteenth. So Illinois passed today. It was the first state in the union to recognize Juneteenth as a holiday, and then later that afternoon, it became a federal thing. So it might be the only state to do. I think Texas is doing it too, but either way, it's good. Pretty crazy that we've never had a federal holiday celebrating the freedom of slaves, but that just seems like something that's been a long time coming, and here we are. So hey, you know what? Today's a good day to start. So very much hyped for that.
That was good news to see. I'm always nebulous of quote unquote new holidays. I know there's the one debate, and please do not. I know Dom could write a dissertation on this. I almost dropped our F-bomb there. But I know Dom could write a dissertation on this. I said before they shouldn't make Election Day a holiday. I still don't think they should, because the last thing I want is another day where mattresses are half off, because that's what they're good, and that's what I worry about. But
if that's your one reason, okay.
Juneteenth is a day worth remembering, though, no less. And I mean, I'll never forget. I didn't realize, I never heard of it until I was about a senior in high school. They never taught it. You'd think that'd be a thing they'd want to teach or at least mention, but they never did. And I remember my social studies teacher being freaking gobsmacked that nobody, I think 2 people in the class knew what Juneteenth was and the significance of it. But yeah, that was good news to see today. Joe, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I recently started a new job. It's been a lot to adjust to, a whole new setting. I didn't think switching from one workplace to another would be really hard, but it is. I thought I was like, oh, this will be as easy as it was when I first got hired somewhere. No, it's rough, man.
Yeah.
Do they know about the show?
No.
First day where you're like, yo, subscribe to Sleepless with Steve.
I'll reveal it later.
Joe's ashamed of us.
No.
That's what it is. No, best of luck, though. I know you're starting that new job and everything. Best of luck. Appreciate you still carving out your hour a week for Sleepless with Steve and all the hard work that you do. This show, though, by comparison to other shows, I don't want to say it's going to be light, but it's not as topic heavy. It's pretty much an all In the Heights show. We got a brief little thing to note in the beginning here, but we're going to review In the Heights. We saw it. Joe and I saw it in the theater, not together, separate over here, but we did see it in the theater. Dom had to catch it on HBO Max, but no less. This is a movie I think you want to see on the theater, but I'm not going to begrudge anybody who takes convenience into their own hands and checks it out on HBO Max. So we're going to be talking about that in just a few short minutes, and then also talk about, it's kind of upsetting because I think we're all going to be pretty, heap praise on this movie, and then talk about why nobody went to see it in the theater. So it's going to be a nice little diversion over here. And I'm going to get on my soapbox here with a nice monologue about In the Heights underperforming at the box office. So I'll end the show with that. We'll kind of discuss that. But in the meantime, I think we should, I think I'll mention this, as Dom put it, the fun time that we had and you didn't. But no less, I feel like it's worth something, to mention. Like I said, we've been doing the Sleepless with Steve revival show now since April of last year, right in the early beginning of the pandemic. And it's been a diversion for all of us. If nothing else, once a week. I know we all kind of think about it or, plan for it, prep for it throughout the week. But the one time we're on behind the microphone and doing our thing, It's kind of been a nice diversion, especially in the thick of the summer last year when there was really nothing going on, even into the fall, and what a pitiful winter, throughout the pandemic. But yeah, I'm grateful for these guys. Like I said, we did the show in college together, and it was some of the most fun days in college, was being up till 3 a.m. with these two guys, talking on the air about movies in our lovely home, Studio A, WONC 89.1 FM. But we got together this week. I want to treat these guys to dinner. I said it in the beginning of the year when vaccinations were imminent. I said I wanted to take these guys out to a nice dinner for all their hard work, and we did. We went to beautiful Jackson Avenue Pub in Naperville. All the local listeners and viewers will know that one. But Jackson Avenue Pub, we went over there. They got a couple burgers. I got my chicken strips. I had to be the 10-year-old at the table. Just had drinks, had a good time. And it was fun. Went back to my place afterwards, hung out for a little while. I wound up keeping Dom till like about 11 o'clock, I think. So we were getting a little twisted off them twisted teas.
Damn.
But it was a good time. I don't know if Joe's showing the photos and such of the nice evening that we had. But yeah, there was
it looks like I'm wearing a choker.
Bugged a very nice waitress to take those photos. Yeah, it did kind of. You're like the man with the spectacles around your neck.
That's for the record, that's a mask. But because I'm eating, I put it around the back end, but now it just looks like I have a choker.
Yeah, it was a fun time, though. We're going to kind of continue it next Sunday, a week from Sunday. Joe, you want to mention that? Because I think we're going to have some photos of that excursion when we review F9.
We're going to tell you about this, but you're not invited.
You're not invited.
If you're watching this, you're not invited.
Maybe we'll have one viewer for Sleepless be able to join. But I have a special screening, up to 20 people, of Fast and Furious 9, or F9, the official title. Just the letter F and the number 9. I'm looking forward to it. I invited these guys along with a bunch of other people that I know. And it's just going to be a fun time. It was honestly, I love Fast and Furious. As stupid as it is, to me, it is a franchise I grew up with. So it'll always have a special place in my heart. I call it out on its BS all the time, but like I get excited to see these dumb movies every time they come to the big screen. It's just like, honestly, no one goes as ballistic as they do and as crazy as they do. And hell, I remember when when Steve and I reviewed Hurricane Heist, and I really opened up with the review saying, man, I wish this movie was as stupid as Fast and Furious because it needed something like that.
And it was directed by Rob Cohen, the guy who did the first one, yeah.
And I was just like, and don't get me wrong, I love the original movies, 1, 2, and 3, where they were mostly focused on cars and races, but God, I do love how crazy they've gotten. It's a lot of fun, but I can't wait. It's going to be a ton of fun. We're going to review it, take some photos. I won't spoil the big surprise, but there's going to be a special guest there, and I won't spoil who.
Yeah, I'm so stoked for this. We got some old buddies coming to this. There's going to be some good photos. I'm supremely excited. I think it's be a fun summer thing too, and just kind of have the whole theater to ourselves. I've never had that experience before. I mean, I've had theaters to myself because nobody else bought a ticket, but to rent out a theater for an event movie like this, it's going to be a bucket list thing, I think, for all of us.
It's almost like I'm hosting like something at my house with the amount of people coming too. It's like, yeah, it's only 20 people, but it's just like the different friend groups I have coming, like friends from home, friends from like high school, and then friends from North Central. It's just like they're all colliding at one spot.
It's like my 10-year party a couple years ago.
Yeah.
It's kind of just an amalgam of people, and I'm just like, I told everybody coming, talk, make friends. These are cool people. If they weren't, they wouldn't be here. Yeah. And I assume the same is going to be for this too. Yep, it's going to be fun next Sunday. So we'll have photos for our review of F9 on June 30th. But we might as well march right in. We're still relatively early in the show. Let's talk about In the Heights, gentlemen. It's been on the tip of my tongue since I saw it. You don't know how hard it was because we went out Saturday night as a group, and we had all seen In the Heights by then, but we did not talk about it very much at all. A couple things here and there, but we really had to be tight-lipped, And for a movie this good, it's hard to stay quiet about a movie like In the Heights. Because, my God, I'm going to start by saying this. This is how I'm going to lead it off for you guys. This is exactly the kind of jubilant, theatrical experience I missed ever since I was told that I couldn't go to the theater anymore, that all the theaters were closed. This is exactly the kind of thing I wanted to see on the screen. I'm a musical fan. I'm not a I don't watch as many of them as I probably should, but I always enjoy a good musical. I enjoy the sort of camaraderie. I enjoy how the lyrics and the beat matches the editing in a lot of these scenes, and it does so here extremely well. And of course, In the Heights was penned, the musical slash play was penned by Lin-Manuel Miranda of Hamilton fame. So we're probably going to dive into him quite a bit throughout this next segment as well. But of course, it was a musical. It was adapted from a book. The screenwriter of the book is the writer of the book is the screenwriter of the film, Chiara Algria Hughes. I'm gonna butcher that name. I really should have looked into that one. I ain't gonna butcher that one anymore. Give respect to the talented over here. But yeah, excellent. I'm just gonna come off and say excellent theater experience and a damn great movie. Huge ensemble, memorable songs, and just when it comes to Lin-Manuel Miranda too, Lin-Manuel Miranda. When it comes to somebody, I know he didn't write the movie, but he's obviously writing some of the source material, not the actual source material, but this was adapted from the musical. And, when it comes to crafting a play with diverse casts, huge ensembles, big set pieces, likable character types, expressive and unique lyricism too, and just the impact of togetherness that ties together through the theme of this as it takes place in Washington Heights, New York. Lin-Manuel Miranda can have the goddamn crown for being so on top of just everything that makes a musical memorable, exciting, and an experience. And that's what this movie absolutely is. I'm sky high on my praise for this. I can't wait to hear what you say. Joe, what say you about In the Heights?
This is just some no, okay, I'm not even gonna joke about it, man.
I knew you were gonna go make that crack.
I'm not even gonna do it. I'm just gonna stick with what Steve was saying. Yeah, man, for sure, this is the movie. As much as I love seeing Quiet Place 2 in theaters, and it's probably gonna be one of my favorite movies at the end of the year, this was the movie, honestly, that made me realize how much I missed going to the movies and how much I missed what it feels like to be around people and everything, because this movie is just the perfect way to just welcome back normalcy. Honestly, the amount of people you see on screen just having fun, dancing at so many festivities and everything, at water parks, at barbecues, at nightclubs, just out on the street. It's just just going, honestly, watching people just go to their work at early in the morning, grabbing coffee. It just felt like, oh God, it feels so good to see that again, honestly. And I know it's not I shouldn't be giving movie so many points for that, because it's how did the movie expect a pandemic to come down? But that being said, Steve is absolutely right. It's a lot of fun. Just seeing these big ensemble pieces of just city life in Washington Heights is a ton of fun. The opening number to this movie, I think, is the best number. It sucks to say that it is the opening number, but it is absolutely fantastic. I love watching Usnavi. I had to remember how his name was said, but then
played by Anthony Ramos.
Thank you. Yeah, how Usnavi opens up his shop, he welcomes, and you introduce to each character a little backstory to them. It's done so well. Reminded me so much of the opening song to Hamilton as well. I wonder why. But that's not saying the other numbers aren't great either. There's one that takes place at a water park. It's really damn cool. I'm a sucker for splash dancing. There's one involving the life of this older woman, and you're going throughout her childhood to where she is now, and it's very emotional. It's very touching. And there's even just some very Hollywood imaginative magical moment between Corey Hawkins and his girlfriend in the film that I won't ruin, but the way that was shot was really cool. It reminded me some of the older musicals that I grew up watching in film class. But yeah, man, it is just a blast to go and see this movie. It is by far, I think, probably the most fun I will have in theaters. There was not a time I was not smiling or just I'll admit it. It's been a while since I've said this, but I actually had tears running down my face because of how emotional I got sometimes with the story, and how much I'm not Puerto Rican, I'm Italian, but my grandparents did come from another country, and my parents did kind of have to go through something like this, and I saw similarities in them throughout this movie, and it honestly hit home a ton of times. It's an absolutely fantastic movie. I can't wait to talk about it further, but before I keep talking, because I know I will, I'm gonna pass it off to Dom.
Yeah, there's a going off what you said. There's a specific immigrant angle to this that if you are within that world at all, it's if you have any familiarity with that world, it hits pretty deep. There are like multiple characters. I want to say like half the cast, which makes sense because it's it deals with a lot of those issues. But half of the characters deal with some sort of immigration one way or another. And yeah, as the first generation parents came from the Philippines, it really struck deep. Honestly, so I think both of you guys mentioned that In the Heights, the first song, opening song, is your favorite song. I think both of you are going to say that.
Yes.
I'm actually really surprised by that because I thought at least Carnaval del Barrio would be it's your number 2. There you go.
That's 2.
That's like top 5 for me in this movie as well.
Fair enough. Honestly, for me, it's like a tie between Paciencia y Fe, which is the abuela going through her life, kind of flashback song, her song, and then yeah, between that and Carnaval del Barrio, I think Paciencia is going to be her probably the most emotional one. Yeah, Steve.
If we'll do like I said for yours, In the Heights would be my number 1, followed very closely by Carnaval del Barrio, which is I love that one. I love that number just because it's in such a tight space too. That had to be a blocking nightmare to shoot that thing, as well as they did. Credit to John M. Chu. The third one would be No Me Diga, which is in the salon, which is in it's the salon song.
That is a good one.
When Nina comes back, I love that because I used to get my hair cut in a place in Chicago that was just like that. Your haircut would take 20 minutes, but it would take 45 with the amount of gossiping in between. It was great.
So freaking true.
If I
dude,
do mine as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Go for it.
For me, like I said, In the Heights is number 1 for me. Then Blackout, because the drum fills in that song, as a drummer myself, are really damn good. 96,000 would be 3. And then probably Carnival del Barrio, and then the Abuela song would be number 5.
Yeah,
96,000's great. Go on, Dom.
Yeah, we could just heap praise on this soundtrack the whole night, and maybe we will, but we'll try not to. But yeah, dude, the thing about this musical is that you sit back and you look at it, honestly. So I watched it at home. I wanted to get that home experience. I'm kind of sick of theaters. No, I'm kidding. But like... no, I watched it at home, and even then, watching it at home, I was still like, I was wondering to myself, how the hell did we not get a musical like this for so long? It took 2021 to get a movie musical. Obviously, the original In the Heights was like 2009 or something, but how did we not get a movie musical like this for this long? Like, it is just absolutely perfect. It's a extremely diverse cast, diverse in the Latin and Hispanic sense. It takes advantage of both hip hop and traditional song. It's beautifully shot, and it's extremely colorful, and it's like, dang, we really got Hairspray, like 3 versions of Hairspray before we got this movie. And it's like, all right, well, I guess it was time for it. And honestly, it really does pay off. Going to what I mentioned about how it was shot, and really just the everything, this whole movie is so active. And I was like, damn, there's so many extras in this movie. And lo and behold, when it got to the credits, usually in like a Marvel movie, you'll see like the CGI technicians, like all the programmers, it's like literally like 7 font with 7 size font with like the margins all the way out to here. And it's like all the tiny little, because there's like a billion CGI artists. It's kind of the same thing for all the extras and dancers in the background. Like, kudos to Chu for did I say that right?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yes. Okay, Chu. For really nailing that. And honestly, the difference between having a really active but really fun and festive screen, I'll just say, I don't know the technical word for it, screen, as opposed to color vomit, and just like, this is too much. This is like a Michael Bay film. That's a very fine line to cross, and it's very, very hard to do. It's a very hard thing. I wouldn't even know how to like do that. But when you see it and when you're not disturbed by it, it actually is beautiful, and it really goes to show again. John M. Chu is he's built for these kinds of movies. So
yeah,
I keep mentioning him. We've mentioned him before. Funny enough, the major player here that is not Hispanic or Latino is the director. And it's thinking, why did they choose? I mean, obviously, if they're good, they're good. But like, you would think if the whole cast is from this part of the world, why would they choose an Asian director? I believe he's half Taiwanese, half Chinese. Well, if you go, it's like, but Chelsea actually forgot. It's like, oh yeah, he's the director of Crazy Rich Asians, and it's like, okay, that makes perfect sense. Honestly, this movie, this movie, I'm not part of the audience that would make that decision, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this movie is to the Latin and Hispanic communities as Crazy Rich Asians was to the Asian community here in America.
There's so many times.
I was gonna say John M. Chu is also. He got to start with a couple Step Up sequels. He did the Justin Bieber documentary,
sense.
Never Say Never.
That makes sense.
He did I think he did a G.I. Joe sequel in there as well. Retaliation, yeah. And Crazy Rich Asians, which is probably what he's most known for. And then also I believe, I don't know what 19th director they're on, but I think he's directing the Wicked movie. I think.
Oh.
Yes.
He was correct. Attached at one point. Okay, he still is. Good. Because the guy, up until this point, I've seen a lot of his movies. He also did that Gem and the Holograms movie nobody saw either.
That's what he did.
He did that one. The guy hasn't had the best scripts to work with, but he makes everything a visual spectacle. And I honestly think this is his best directorial job yet.
Yeah, as somebody who saw Crazy Rich Asians in theaters back in 2018, I really did love that movie. And one, it is owed to John M. Chu, who really brought you into that lifestyle, brought you into that royalty that exists out there. And he sold it well. The cinematography in that movie, the sets, all the extras is what sells that movie and makes it as fun as it is, putting you in that experience, in that hot seat, along with the main character of experiencing that culture. And he just does the same thing here. It's just now you're plopped into Washington Heights with Usnavi, and you're gonna go on this journey with him and meet all these people throughout the community, and what it means to be from another country here in the United States, trying to get by every day and everything, and just being part of this community as a whole. It was just wow, man, twice you've taken an aspect of another culture in a setting and you sold it completely. You shot it well, and it just has so much energy to it that I'm honestly this guy is getting better and better with each movie, honestly, since Crazy Rich Asians, I should say, because his start was this, especially with Gem and the Holograms. But since Crazy Rich Asians, it's been this, and I'm hoping that Wicked movie is a knockout of the park as well.
Yeah, and Dom was saying too, it's been a while since we've gotten movie musicals. I'll try to refrain from why, given in my monologue about the box office performance of In the Heights, because you go back to Rent, and Rent bombed. Musicals are one of those things, they're niche, and they're niche, if you will say. But the problem also is that you just get it's a very finite audience for this kind of thing too. But yeah, I really believe that this movie, I saw it as a matinee screening, and it was a plethora of people in there. It was a lot of older people. It was a lot of younger people, probably about 25 people, and everybody enjoyed it. Everybody applauded at the end. And that's the thing about this movie too, is that, I know there's the universality argument of not everything has to be universal, but I know some people are going to look at this movie and say this movie isn't for me or whatever, given the makeup of the cast, the Latin, Dominican, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, the plethora of faces, blacks that you see in this movie. But this movie does have a real universal message in a way about being a part of a community, being, from a community. And I think Usnavi says it early in the movie. You could throw a rock and hit somebody with a dream and with somebody with big plans. And I think it excels to this movie is because Washington Heights is a character in its own, but it also feels like this lived in, breathing ecosystem.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. And honestly, looking at that community, in the community in the film. And it's like I sometimes I do wonder, it's like, damn, dude. Particularly out here in the suburbs, it's like obviously we have our communities, so, we've got each other and we've got our families and whatnot to a good degree too, but it's like, damn, nothing like that. Granted, it is, it's a movie, so to some degree it's a fantasy, but certainly in an urban environment, I would imagine it's a little more tight knit, just because people are literally closer together. And it's like, damn, we're really kind of missing that out in the suburbs sometimes. And even then, I feel like people if they can't identify with it, which very hard pressed, that'd be a very rare thing. Maybe they don't even recognize it at first. At the very least, they can be attracted to it, because that sense of family and that sense of belonging there, even with all their dysfunctions, is it's so cool to see it play out in this specific way. And honestly, we mentioned the soundtrack before, but going back to it just for a moment, the blend of hip hop and song here, I think, going back to Hamilton, which was Lin-Manuel Miranda's, it came after In the Heights, and it was that was the first movie, so to speak, kind of the movie but shot on the stage itself. But like that one, I think trended more towards hip hop, or rather, between the balance between rap and song, it was a little more rap. I think that's kind of safe to say, looking back on it. Here, I think it's more, if not half and half. I think a little more sung. What do you guys? Would you say that? It's kind of hard to say, right? But you kind of have to look at it again. But regardless, just comparing the two, which is inevitable, just because they're the biggest things on Miranda's history, his rap sheet. I don't know. I feel like I still gravitate towards Hamilton more personally, just because it's such a weirder thing, right? It's like, hey, here's George Washington, or rather, here's Thomas Jefferson rapping about like coming back from France. I'm like, that is so crazy. Where the hell, like, will you ever like see that ever again? Honestly, because then you'll just be a Hamilton ripoff. But also, just like, who would even think of that? Whereas In the Heights, as I mentioned earlier, it's like, yeah, how have we not gotten this musical before? Still, at the same time, it felt less unique. I don't. I think I'm even laying it on there a little bit thick. But you know what I'm saying, Joe?
No. Okay. I hate to like jump to a criticism.
I mean, that's fine. I was kind of signaling that way too. I was trying to prevent us from not.
I love this movie. Don't get me wrong. I really do, because I know Steve loved it, because I read his review, because I just had to know what he thought of it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's the only review I ever read ahead of us like actually talking about it, because I was just curious. I'm like, man, I wonder if he loved it more than me, because the glimpse that I got while we were at our little dinner over the weekend, I was like, I think this dude loved it more than me. I do like Hamilton more. I am in Dom's boat there. And it's just because Hamilton's also just a tighter story here. It's tighter. Yeah. It is more original. Oh my God. Original and weirder as well. To Dom's credit, he did point out that, and thinking about it, yeah. Here, it's not that the movie's not original. There's nothing wrong with like taking the same old stuff and doing it, but you're doing it in a refreshing way. You're doing it with energy. You're doing it with a lot more fun than like, I don't know, half of the other melodramas that we get that are Oscar bait films from time to time that are about like, immigration or something that like, just like, oh, we'll go out there to get the audience's hearts wrenching. Like, oh my God, it's so sad. But it's like In the Heights doesn't do that. It never steeps that low. The only thing I would just say as far as my criticism is that there are so many storylines in this movie that other than the main character Usnavi's, I wasn't really attached to any of the other ones. There's one involving the character Nina where she experiences some racism at her college when she comes back home. There's another one involving the salon ladies, which is fine. And there's another one involving the love interest, Vanessa. They're not bad. It's just like, I just was finding myself way more attached to Usnavi's storyline and the characters surrounding him than everybody else in the movie. That doesn't mean I didn't have fun with those other characters, because the music numbers that they have to go along with their stories are much better than the actual stories themselves. While Usnavi, I feel like, has a good balance of both.
Yeah, and it makes it, obviously there's like A, B, and C plots. We recognize
it's a musical,
that,
for God's sakes, yeah.
Yeah, but even then, just like how, well, actually with Vanessa's, that's like, you would think that would be pretty important too, because she's the main love interest, right? But even then, there was something about Vanessa's story with her trying to be a fashion designer, and then Well, that just felt underdeveloped the whole time. to me personally, I don't know. Maybe it's because I've seen that kind of story a billion times. You could say that with all these stories. Something about that felt a little undercooked. And then something with Nina's story, the daughter who's, she's dropping out of college, or is she? And then Jimmy Smith's trying to, he's a hardworking immigrant dad. And then it's like that one just felt like it wrapped up on a dime, like in 2 seconds or something, and without any fanfare whatsoever. I don't know. That one, I don't know.
That one felt a little quick to wrap up, I'll say.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
I like the direction. I like the meat that it's given, though. I do like the kind of direction it's taken because of the battle of upward mobility for future generations versus preserving something from the past. I think the thematic weight of the plot line is better, even if it does feel like it gets wrapped up too cleanly.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I should also mention that I don't think any of us have seen we never saw the musical on Broadway. And I don't think we listened to the original Broadway recording at all. I know I really didn't. Maybe I caught 96,000 by chance. Maybe a couple songs after listening to Hamilton last year. But really, I really didn't. We were all going in kind of blinded into this. So I know people are like, oh man, they cut this song. And it's like, oh, they completely ruined this story from the original. It's like, that's not our angle. I'm just judging it based on what I saw in the film. And even then though, still it's like something's felt a little undercooked there. And I have to watch it again and really see why. Maybe it's a tough balancing act when you convert to film. I do think though that had they gone any longer, I think they would have overstayed their welcome, because there's only so many songs there's only so I hesitate to say this, but like I feel like there would be only so many song numbers in a Latin Hispanic musical that celebrate the same things that you can really lay on over and over again. You know what I'm saying? Whereas Hamilton has more versatility, because it's like, yeah, there was no rap in the 1700s, so we can just do whatever and it'll feel fresh. Whereas here, if you have similar instrumentation going on for 2.5 hours or so, similar, the same kind of melodic contours and what have you, all those musical analysis stuff, it can kind of feel overwrought. Thankfully, I don't think it overstayed its welcome personally. Maybe some messiness with the plot. But honestly, I thought it ended right where it needed to, and I still had fun.
I would say too, like the movie is 2.5 hours long. Never felt its length though. I was having that much fun that by the time we had to wrap it up and it was on its last scene, I was like, wow, all right, like we're actually finishing this. Wow, that flew by. Nice.
There's dialogue, but there's so few and far between. It goes from song to song.
And I mean, we'll have to take our Zoom sponsored intermission here in just a moment, just like the In the Heights musical / play. We will take an intermission, but it's one of those things I would both describe. I use this adjective both in my Hamilton review and my In the Heights review, is that, and it's partly a criticism, but it's also just a trait, and it also comes with the material. I think is that both of them can be exhaustive. And exhaustive as opposed to exhausting. They're exhaustive in that they want to milk everything out of the premise. And it is a lengthy movie, In the Heights. It absolutely is. But I don't feel there's not many lulls. And the few lulls that there are in the narrative are cleaned up or brushed over very quickly so as not to impede on the overall pacing. And it helps when you have, in my opinion, like I said, regardless of whether or not I got as wrapped up in any of the narrative threads as I did Usnavi's, the movie forces you really to get so attached to Usnavi's, the storyline and his upbringing and everything. I didn't find any character a burden. I didn't find any character uninteresting. I think the only thing, if there was one criticism I could levy, it's that I feel like Benny doesn't really get too much of his own storyline there.
Yes.
And that would be the one major thing I would say, is that Corey Hawkins deserved a little bit more outside of one really great early music number and the delivery and everything. He deserved more, his character. But we'll move forward into the Zoom sponsored intermission. Be back in a couple of minutes. Probably lean towards giving our closing thoughts on In the Heights in just a few, and then also dive into why the film underperformed at the box office. All that and more coming up on Sleepless with Steve. Don't go anywhere. from our Zoom-sponsored intermission. It is Sleepless with Steve, talking about In the Heights, the brand new film John M. Chu directed, based off the Lin-Manuel Miranda play, which is also based off of a book written by the writer of the In the Heights movie, whose name I will butcher at the beginning, and I will not do so again. But anyway, going on with In the Heights too. One other point I'll make, too, that Dom sort of touched on at the very beginning, too, is the color palette of this movie. This movie doesn't bombard you with color. It's more like a symphony of various colors in one really attractive palette. And credit to Alice Brooks, the cinematographer on this thing, who did a marvelous job, her and Chu, creating, dynamic visuals. And Joe and I briefly talked about this on Saturday, but like, it's hard to watch this movie, at least for us. Both of us said the same thing. I'm wondering if you thought the same thing too, Dom. It was hard to watch this movie at certain points and not think Do the Right Thing, because of the fact that it's set in New York, a diverse New York neighborhood. But where whatchamacallit, where Spike Lee used the color red in Do the Right Thing to really drive home the point of the heat. This movie has so many extras and just so many people. You can almost feel the energy zap at times because of the stifling heat, just the look of exhaustion. There's even certain points I swear you can see the damn pavement bubbling because it's so damn miserable.
There were so many times I was just like, I got that vibe from it as well. I was like, damn, this is reminding me so much of Do the Right Thing, just because like it's in a small block neighborhood, like diverse and everything. But like, as you were saying, Spike Lee used like the color red to emphasize the heat. Yeah, the movie here, in order to emphasize the heat, they just made sure those extras stood out in the heat for like hours and hours. Because like, my favorite shot in this movie is there's a dude with one of those small inflatable tubes, and he just is laying in it, and there's a big block of ice in that pool, like bigger than a kid, and just chilling there.
There's that joke about public pools, and there's all sorts of stereotypes, but there's always that one bigger Latino guy in like a shirt, but it's like a drenched shirt, and then he has a son or something. There's always that joke, and it's like, damn, I kind of saw that too in the movie. And yeah, dude, I was like, dude, when like when in Washington Heights, there's the people on the stoop singing and rapping. I was like, damn, Radio Raheem's gonna just walk by and like interrupts everyone's set with his radio.
Fight the power.
Before I was supposed to fight the power. No, man. But yeah, no, Steve, I'm really glad you brought that up, because even though it is super colorful, it sticks within its realm. I think it kind of sticks with the more cliched, but the more urban kind of colors, whatever you think, that may be, more like, pavement gray, et cetera, or brick brown or whatever. And the contrast with that, honestly, like Chu, you could just dedicate a whole color correction class on his films in a film school, and it's like, god damn, yeah, dude, because like between that and Crazy Rich Asians,
even Gem and the Holograms did a lot with color.
I didn't watch it
otherwise, but it did a lot well with the visuals were on point.
I'm gonna guess a lot of purples and pinks because the Gem, because the
imagine
the
Blade Runner but for a girl band.
See, I didn't think about that.
The Spice Girls movie got run through the Blade Runner filter.
There we go.
Oh damn. Okay. Yeah, dude. Do we want to close out with ratings and then go to the box office thing?
I think so.
Okay,
I think so. I mean, I'll be brief here and just say final thoughts and stuff. Is that like, the movie's runtime I think might leave you exhausted. There are some lulls here, as I mentioned before, but the weight of the production, the weight of the whole entire thing, it never really gets the best of it, despite the over 2-hour investment that the movie does demand. And I also found, to drive really this home, Summer 21, as I'm calling it right now, I think is one that a lot of people are going to spend and probably exhaust themselves in doing things that they were not permitted or could not do last year. I know for one, I'm keeping a checklist of everything I've done so far this summer, and I've already got almost a page of stuff that's just been really fun or really noteworthy, and we're barely halfway way through June. And I think that's what In the Heights kicks off. This thing comes out at the beginning of the summer. It's a raucous blockbuster that's about celebrating individuality, but also community, which is kind of a tough line to toe. You have a plethora of talented individuals throughout this thing. You have a diverse crop of songs as well with witty lyricism. I've been bumping the soundtrack throughout the week again, just catching little instances in the music and just different compositional aspects. This is a wonderful time at the movies, and it's a really joyous occasion to see something like this come to life. It's also a reminder we don't get many musicals. I think the last musical I saw in theaters, because I obviously didn't watch Hamilton in theaters, I think the last musical I saw in theaters was Rocket Man, and that was great on its own right as well. But I give In the Heights 4 out of 4 stars. Absolutely loved it. Everything I could have wanted out of this movie, and I hope people see it, make time for it. I think this is one of those ones that's going to go on kind of like Rent did, the movie Rent, in that it's going to have a good life after theaters.
Yeah.
You know, it'll find its audience. I really do. It's 4 out of 4 stars for me. This is up there. This is a top 5 entry. And in a year that's been very good for movies so far, this is up there in my top 5. At the halfway point of the year.
The last musical I saw in theaters was Cats, so you can only go up from there. And this thing skyrocketed up through the ceiling and went into space in terms of comparison and beyond. It discovered a whole new world where Cats 2 is actually a thing. That's as far as it went. Yeah, I got to piggyback off of everything Steve said. This year so far, in terms of going back to the theaters and what we've been given in terms of films, it's been a solid start. At the beginning of the year in January and February, I was not doing so hot with both HBO Max's releases that were also in theaters at the same time with The Little Things and Tom and Jerry. But it's like, all right, I can forgive you guys with both In the Heights now. Godzilla versus Kong. I know that's not one of your favorite stuff, but like even like the stuff they have lined up for the end of the year, like everything else so far they have just looks better and better with Dune, Reminisce, and like the Suicide Squad, and what else we have to come too. Even The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. That was decent. Like
Space Jam.
Okay, I don't know about Space Jam. Hold on, that might bring it back down for me.
Easy.
But no, the focus on In the Heights because I need to and get word out about this movie. Yeah, if you have not seen this movie and you like musicals, what the fuck is wrong with you? Go out there and go see this movie. I'm sorry if I wasted the one F word, but for real, man, like, come on, get out there, go have some fun, you know. And if you haven't watched it on HBO Max, do yourself a favor, watch it on HBO Max as well. I watched this movie twice already. I've been bumping the soundtrack on Spotify all week. It is a blast. It reminded me of Rent. It reminded me of Chicago. All these musicals I grew up watching that made me go, damn, these are a lot of fun and everything. And the soundtracks I grew up with. It felt great to see one done with actual people, not CGI cats, not CGI other things. Like, this reminded me of why I loved Rocket Man so much. I know Steve just brought it up, but the energy that Rocket Man brought into its music numbers and the fantasy behind it, it reminded me of that. Not so much the fantasy aspect, but the energy, the effort that was put there. It is on display here at full force. I had a blast watching this movie. Sure, the storylines are not as tight as Hamilton, but I can forgive it for its style and its music being as strong as it is. It is 3.5 out of 4 stars for me.
Yeah, dude. You know, last year when Hamilton came out on the 4th of July, and remember that? Yeah, it came out on the 4th of July at the height of, election season. Will go on to be the craziest effing election season ever. But when that came out, it really hit perfectly. It struck a chord. It was very introspective of what it means to be an American and all that stuff, and just think about the origins of our country. And you know, I could go on about that. I could read many dissertations have been written on that, I'm sure, but it really came at the perfect time. And In the Heights, honestly, there's a parallel there. It quite matches for this year as people are ready to burst out of their home. As I'm, sitting here, I'm looking out the window up down below, and there's kids playing outside. Now, I didn't see that, for much of last year. to be honest with you, at least during the weekdays. And it really is amazing just how Lin-Manuel Miranda has given us these back-to-back soundtracks to our, not just our summers, but to our year. And In the Heights, the movie gives us an awesome soundtrack, a whole plate of culture and diversity that, quite frankly, I didn't even know like you could fit that many Latin beats into a musical and me not get sick of it, or at least you gave me the right perfect amount before I got sick of it, and it found that formula. Look, man, is the story as tight as Hamilton? No, but there's a reason why Hamilton came after. It was his sophomore effort, but this movie is certainly still worthy, and in the hands of Shu here, it has absolutely made its mark. I got to give this the strongest 3.5 out of 4 stars that I possibly can. This movie is awesome, and Steven Spielberg's West Side Story has a tough act to follow, because that story, half that story is Puerto Ricans on the west side of New York talking about immigrant problems and racism. And all right, Spielberg, it's your move.
Yes, we talked about that actually before you came Saturday, because Dom brought it up again. He was like, you saw the West Side Story trailer or whatever. And I said, yeah. I said, I'm looking forward to it. I said, I got to watch the original. But then I remembered, I'm like, Dom had to pull up, or Joe had to pull up IMDb, because he's like, because I'm like, what was the last thing Spielberg directed? I'm like, I do not remember. And it was The Post.
Yeah.
It was The Post. He hasn't made a movie in like 3 years.
Yeah.
It was The Post and Ready Player One. Those were his last two. So it's not only another musical event. It is Spielberg's first movie in several years. This is
his first musical ever. This is actually like that was big. Is that it is his very first ever musical. I think he'll do fine with it, but just to see the legacy of the original is just so high. But he actually has a couple Hamilton actors, not like straight up Hamilton actors in his movie, in West Side Story. Funny enough, Joe.
No, I was gonna say I was gonna bring up that point about the Hamilton actors. But no, there's one thing I think Spielberg has been doing better at lately. It is doing something more old Hollywood-ish, I guess is the best way to say it, because I thought Ready Player One was whatever. I thought The Post, while I was trying to, it is a story that takes place in the past, but it's trying to relate to today. It was like, okay, dude, like, you're not really getting it here. You're following the same old stuff. When he does old Hollywood stuff like Bridge of Spies, spy thriller movie and everything, like, I feel like that's where Spielberg's home is at. So I'm hoping he also falls into old Hollywood musical as well, like where he can nail that look, that tempo, that the energy as well with a musical like West Side Story.
Bridge of Spies you brought up too as well, and also do not sleep. Justice for the Adventures of Tintin.
Yes, thank you.
Quite possibly one among, because he's got such a huge filmography, I'm obviously missing a few off the top of my head. That is one of the most underrated Spielberg movies ever.
I would say it is the most underrated Spielberg movie.
Yeah, that The Adventures of Tintin. You want to talk about old Hollywood done well? There you go.
Yeah.
We'll wrap up here, however, with In the Heights, talking about its box office performance. Excuse me, gentlemen, I got a bit of a monologue here. I get on my soapbox. And it's also really interesting because what's one thing we haven't talked about for a long time on this show, not since it's been revived, are box office receipts. That's one thing that's been really irrelevant this last year, is just how much money movies make. I mean, Jesus Christ, I remember back in July when drive-ins were only open, I look at the top 10 just for the hell of it. Man, you got Raiders of the Lost Ark, you got Star Wars, you got Goonies. I said, man, I can imagine. Can you imagine if somebody's been in a coma the last 2 years? What, you show them the top 10 movie list, what the hell year are they going to think they woke up in? But anyway, so I got to get going on a little bit of a rant here. So, I mean, it's easy to get wrapped up in the hype for a new movie, like In the Heights, especially if you're like me, even though I'm not on it as much anymore, film Twitter, if you're on Reddit and other social media sites. But online hype has shown us time and time and time again not to get fooled. If film nerds are excited for something, it doesn't always mean large box office returns. That's the moral of the story. Despite what I perceived, and I think a lot of people perceived as palpable hype for In the Heights. Attractive marketing, I would say, and glowing reviews from critics. In the Heights took in a very lean $11 million at the box office over its first 4 days. And it's well below the $20 to $25 million expectation range. A Quiet Place Part 2 reigns supreme again. And far be it for me to be mad at A Quiet Place Part 2 because it's another damn good movie. Glad people are checking that one out. But you can look at this and blame HBO Max for like the movie also being available on HBO Max. But that's a lazy argument, I think, because you have Godzilla versus Kong, which was on there and still made good at the box office. You have The Conjuring 3, which was on there, made good money at the box office. And even Mortal Kombat did pretty well, all things considered, at the box office while still being available for the first month on HBO Max. Regardless of what we want to think, though, there's a couple reasons for this that I think why In the Heights underperformed. It's not a household name of a stage play like Hamilton, number one. I think Hamilton would have done really well had it been in theaters. I think Hamilton would have done really well because that movie, that play was such a force and became a household name play. Everybody wanted to see it. Not everybody could. And I think it would have been a big hit had Hamilton gone to theaters. Where In the Heights came across as what I jokingly say, the other play you don't know from the Hamilton guy. That's kind of what this movie,
true.
That's how the marketing kind of framed this thing in a way. And I'm going to say this is one of them hard to swallow pills for a lot of people. And before anybody gets on my soapbox and tells me, you know, what does a white guy have to say about diversity? Let it be known, my Booksmart video. Go look that up. Go look up my Booksmart rant I went on a couple of years ago.
Why are you trying to get laid, Steve?
At any rate, I'm glad Joe brought that up again. But people are going to want to hear this, but it's absolutely true. This doesn't play well on Twitter or social media. Diversity doesn't sell for movies that people aren't already clamoring to see. Diversity doesn't hurt movies like F9. It doesn't hurt movies that people really want to see, that people are going to see because of intellectual property awareness, brand awareness, sequel. It's not going to hurt a movie like that. It's
Marvel,
not going to
for
be
God's sakes. I mean, look at Black Panther.
Marvel, there you go. It's not going to hurt a movie like that because people are already going to want to see it. But, and this is something I've resisted saying this in a way. And I'm not going to get into this debate of like, because this is kind of a stupid saying as is. And In the Heights, people want to call it the woke movie or whatever. They're starting to get some validity though to the phrase "get woke, go broke." They're starting to become a little bit of validity there. Because if you think about Ghostbusters, if you think Booksmart, if you think Black Christmas, the second remake, Charlie's Angels, the second remake, A Wrinkle in Time, Birds of Prey, and now you have In the Heights, movies that disappointed. And these movies are forward-thinking, inclusive-minded, quality varying, absolutely. In the Heights is the best out of all the movies I've listed, In the Heights and Booksmart. Inclusive-minded premises where they put their diverse casts at the forefront. It's the type of movie people claim they want to see. They want to see more Latinx representation. They want to see more Hispanic representation, more Black representation, more female representation, what have you. You're not going to the damn theater, though. You're not seeing it. It's getting debunked time and time again. And it also goes back to people, again, lying about what they want. In the Heights puts its diversity at the forefront, as it should have. It's a terrific movie, but in a criticism too, it's also kind of bereft of a conventional plot and tied to a lesser known IP. So diversity in cast and message isn't enough for general audiences to give a damn about this thing. And then I think you have the HBO Max factor. I think that is a factor in something like this to say. But again, when you look at a movie like Mortal Kombat, when you look at a movie like Godzilla versus Kong, and when you look at a movie like The Conjuring 3, movies that are doing well in the theaters, people wanted to see those. They got off their ass and saw them, even though with a credit card and a stable internet connection, they could have sat on their ass and watched it at home. And of course, HBO doesn't release the numbers for how many people watched In the Heights on streaming, which is the new thing that pisses me off about this digital age, is that you never know how many people are watching what on streaming services. So I always hate that. But I think diversity in name only doesn't sell with movies. And I think that's been proven now. I think we have several years to show that is not the case.
It's
that
the
people
Queen of
aren't going to be sold on that.
It's the Queen of Cotway situation, right? It's
There's
like
another
you have
one.
it's the perfect movie that, you would think would cater to Twitter, right? But that was your first problem, is that you tried catering to Twitter instead of making something good. It's the Star Wars Episode 9 problem, where it's like, oh, cool, you've got the two women kiss, like it's a gay kiss or whatever,
for like
but
a second
it's
in
only,
the background.
yeah, it's 3 seconds and they can cut it for the Chinese release, right? It's whatever, which is a thing. That is a consistent thing in every Disney movie.
Hey, you better apologize, John Cena.
LeFou, oh, he's gay now. Oh, he dances with a dude for like 2.7 seconds in the very last scene. It's like, Jesus
don't get me
Christ.
started on Deadpool. I took heat for my Deadpool 2 rant.
No, I'm with you on that one.
Forehead.
But before you go off, yeah, dude, it's I'm honestly not that worried about it, because Lin-Manuel Miranda, he's got enough success under his belt. John Shu's got enough success under his belt, and they will take care of all the actors and all the people involved with In the Heights. It'll be perfectly fine. And honestly, yeah, it'll find its audience. I believe the article from Variety also mentioned that The Greatest Showman, which is, I believe, is an inferior musical. I was not a big fan of that musical at all. I think there were a couple of good songs, and like it had a cool concept, but it was very messy. I think it was even more woke. That's a silly term, but if you have to use it, it's like, I think it was more so than In the Heights. In the Heights is like a competently made, like superbly competently made thing. It's a musical, but Greatest Showman, not so much. That seemed like scrapped together.
It did. It seemed like that. I remember that, because that seemed like that seemed like they had a 2.5 hour script that was very comprehensive, and then they had to cut it down. The songs in that movie are great, though. Yeah. I will not deny that.
Sure, go ahead, Joe.
I was gonna say the songs are great, but what I was saying about how like In the Heights, like, yeah, it does have like stories we've seen before, but it does it with so much energy and everything that like you can look past that, or you're actually enjoying yourself being in that moment. Greatest Showman has those stories, and they are as played out and as boring and as tedious as like you could call them by the numbers as soon as they start and where they're gonna end.
It was so on the nose, incredibly 100%. On the nose. And you know what? Greatest Showman, according to the numbers here, it only made $8.8 million at the box office without the coronavirus, of course. And then it wound up making, $438 million globally. Yeah. I think In the Heights will be perfectly fine. I'm honestly not that worried about it.
That
I'm not
movie
even that
was absurdly leggy, though. Like, and don't get me wrong, I'd love to see In the Heights do that. But I think it's going to get edged now. I think it's going to get edged with F9, with coming into theaters. And The Greatest Showman, too, it had a big benefit. There was not much. It came, if I'm not mistaken, did that come out over Christmas or Thanksgiving? It was one of the holidays.
It came out over Christmas. It came out after Rogue One came out. I'm sorry, not Rogue One. It came out after Last Jedi came out and Jumanji.
That's right.
So like the big like crowd like movies were already out, and this came out, and that's why I didn't do so good opening weekend. But like I know where Steve was going with this. When we got into January and February, which is usually a dry spell when it comes to new releases or even just good movies, that's where Greatest Showman was just like climbing up the ranks.
And that was Scott Mendelson writes about it a lot, because that movie was, as far as week to week holds and how it kept staying at the top of the box office and making money several months after release. Not since Titanic has a movie had that kind of multiplier week to week. As leggy as it was and as consistent as it was for how long it was. It's like Titanic, Frozen, and The Greatest Showman for anomaly performances of movies in theaters.
Okay, see, when you said leggy, I thought you were talking about like the bearded lady. I'm like, damn, was she showing leg that whole time? I don't know, but
I meant showing legs, like in terms of staying power. That's a Mendelson term right there.
Honestly, I don't really see a scenario where at least, I mean, at worst, In the Heights will have a cult following, because it already is an incredibly successful stage musical. It has the Lin-Manuel Miranda brand suited, well implanted behind it. So I think it'll be fine. It is a very interesting case study of like something that on the surface is perfect for a smash, to be a smash hit, but it might fade to the background. I don't know, but I'm honestly I'm not too upset about it.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I think it'll find its audience, if nothing else, on streaming. It's just disappointing though, because it's like I like to see great movies do supremely well. Happy for Quiet Place Part 2. But I really was hoping more people would see this movie. At any rate, that's our show. Next week's show is pretty much already laid out. We've got reviews of Fatherhood, the new Kevin Hart dramedy on Netflix that drops on Friday. We got that coming. And we also we're going to review the first episode of iCarly. Now, there's 3 episodes releasing on tomorrow, actually, on Thursday. Tomorrow is when the show comes out. There's going to be the first 3 episodes. We're going to tackle the pilot. Okay. We're probably going to, I don't know if you guys are probably going to watch the other 2. I probably will too. Maybe we'll lean into them, but we're just going to really focus on the pilot. And Dom and I got that bet too, that $5 bet. I think they're going to drop one F-bomb at some point in the whole season. I think there's going to be one F-bomb. I think there's going to be one F-bomb. I do. I got a feeling. I got a feeling this is the new Carly.
You'll see who gives who $5 when we go see Fast and Furious 9.
Yo, you know what, Steve? I think they are only going to drop that iCarly F-bomb if, surprise, second to last episode or last episode, Jeanette McCurdy comes back and it's like, "What's up, mother effers?" And then she comes back as Sam Puckett as a surprise character at the last. I could go into the iCarly lore, but we don't have that kind of time. So yeah.
Mr. iCarly fan fiction man himself right there. That is our show. That's Sleepless with Steve. Great show. Great talking about In the Heights. Go see this movie, even if you're watching on HBO Max, whatever. I recommend you go see it in the theater. You'd be doing yourself a disservice to not. But either way, see a great film. Check it out in theaters or on HBO Max until mid-July, I believe. But that's our show tonight. Highlights will be posted right here on my YouTube channel later on this week, youtube.com/MovieWiz1. You can catch up on all Sleepless with Steve episodes, all sorts of clips, hours upon hours of content on this channel, from the Sleepless Revival show to the radio show we did from 2016 to 2018 as well. For Dominic Guanzon, Joe Viso, and myself, Steve Pulaski, this has been Sleepless with Steve.